ακριβών ή ευτελέστερων. Επιθυμήσει αυτό.
Greetings, wanderer, and welcome to the port of Piraeus. Piraeus is one of the busiest, most important ports in the Greek world. Money flows through here like a river that runs all the way to Athens. Acting as a port for Athens, Piraeus welcomed merchants, goods, and travelers from all over the world. It was a central part of Athens' economy, but it was also fortified enough to protect the city's considerable fleet. When you finish exploring the port, find me, and we will talk further.
Αυτή συναρμόζει ως περιχείριο τες τυλικάφτες γυναιξί. Έστειτε έτοιμο σφουγγάρι, αλλά υπερτήφε. Η εστιχία συμπεριφαντάζομαι.
Piraeus, a peninsula southwest of Athens, became the city's main port after the politician Themistocles encouraged the development of its natural harbours. These developments led to the gradual abandonment of the older harbour of Phaleron. Piraeus's fortifications were further developed by Cimon and Pericles, along with the long walls, which ensured goods could still be moved during sieges. Piraeus was divided into three main sectors: the military port, the emporion, and the residential area. By the 5th century BCE, it had become not only Athens' naval headquarters, but also the mercantile center of the Mediterranean.
Επέστρεψε πλήθος ιδεών περιχειρουργίας.
Πολλό που τη δύναμη ο νηστόμος στα μάλα είναι ένα βολόμος. Τι σημειτός, 4.
Και ως αύριο νυχίλησε ότι σχίσω εις τα σχήρας μου. Ως κατά.
Έχομεν.
Piraeus's development during the 5th century BCE attracted a large population. Many craftsmen, merchants, bankers, sailors, and ship owners moved to the port in great numbers. The population was a mix of Greek citizens, foreign visitors, and immigrants known as metics. The variety of the port's inhabitants gave Piraeus a cosmopolitan atmosphere. Most of the residents were involved in trade, but others worked on shipbuilding or in larger-scale industries like shield factories. Piraeus's commercial focus offered many opportunities for those seeking to increase their wealth and status. One such rags-to-riches tale is that of Passion, a slave who eventually became a citizen and earned a fortune thanks to his bank and his shield factory.
Είδα την αδυνάμενον αν παρέσει την προμής καινοτόμος στα μάλα. Ανάος, ικανοποιός είναι το στρατεύματι. Νη επέστρεψε πλήθος ιδεών περιχειρουργίας.
Piraeus was a demi, or district, of Attica. Because of its size, function, and varied population, it had a much more complicated administrative structure than other demes. Above all, Piraeus was closely monitored and controlled by the Athenian assembly due to its importance to the city. Within the port, there were two separate categories of trade: international trade, which took place in the emporion, and retail trade, which was managed by kapoloi in Piraeus's agora.
ου κακόλα στο σημεί, ου ζωθύραζε νόμων, η μη δυσμύρος, μη καθεί το βλέμμα μήχανος, επειδή πιένος τους πολίτες και συμφωνεί, ου δεν κακό να περγάστη.
Το ηχθιοπολίον εστί μέθερον, αναγκαίον τάραχος και λευκό.
The Emporion was a commercial port dedicated to trading goods from overseas. All international transactions were required to be made within its limits and needed to be exclusively wholesale. Elected magistrates managed all business and laws in the port. Meanwhile, port authorities known as epimelites oversaw trade and took care of the regulation of prices. This was an especially crucial duty, as the amount of supplies and goods could fluctuate wildly based on factors like bad harvests or lost cargo. Common products sold in the Emporion included vegetables, fruits, fish, leather, timber, marble, metal, weapons, and ceramics. According to Hermippos, Athens was also wealthy enough to afford the finest goods from all over the world, including figs from Rhodes, almonds from Thassos, oil from Samos, and wine from Chios. Taxes were collected on all merchandise that came into the Emporion, which provided Athens with a major source of income.
Sì.
After arriving in the Emporion, merchants set up samples of their goods in a display area called the Deigma. This was where citizens and foreigners gathered to officially make their deals. And almost all merchandise that came into the Emporion was traded within the area. The Deigma was under constant supervision by magistrates, who negotiated price control with the importers. They would occasionally give special privileges to those who agreed to sell at lower prices. These privileges ranged from tax exemptions to specially reserved seating in the theatre. Piraeus was a deme, and as such was supervised by a magistrate called the Demarchos. While most demarchoi were chosen locally within their deme, Piraeus was appointed directly by Athens, so the city could better monitor its commercial interests. In fact, matters regarding the Emporion, the military harbour, and the grain trade were regularly debated and decided by the Athenian assembly. Transactions within the Piraeus were supervised by metronomoi. These were magistrates responsible for keeping track of weights and measures. They made sure merchants' measurements were always accurate to prevent bad deals and scams. Even though Piraeus would eventually develop into a city in its own right, it always remained under the control of Athens. A commercial tax of 2%, or a pentecost, was placed on all cargo entering and leaving Piraeus. The tax was collected by a group of 5 people called Pentakostologoi. According to Andocides, this position could be bought for the hefty sum of 30 talents, or 180,000 drachmae. However, most of these officials made a profit of up to 6 talents, making the job very lucrative. While merchants were responsible for setting the value of their goods, Pentakostologoi had the power to challenge the value, if they saw fit. Furthermore, merchants were required to register with these officials before they could transport, display, and sell their goods. Overall, this system provided Piraeus, and by extension Athens, with a tremendous amount of money.
Τι συνέβη μόλις?
Πάψε, συλλέγω.
Αλόκοτον τα μάλα.
The sale of grain was overseen by special magistrates called sitophilakes. Since some Greek cities had a grain deficiency and relied heavily on imports, these officials were extremely important. Their duties encompassed all aspects of grain commerce, including price control and profit margins, to ensure Athens remained well-fed. This is no surprise. Grain was so important to Athens that 2/3 of all stocks were required to be transported and sold at the city's agora by law. According to Demosthenes, the significance of the sitophilakes was such that if they failed in their duties, they faced the death penalty.
Ώστε εις τα άπαντα στους φέροντας άπαντα.
Ανεπίκλητη τη Διονύσο τραπέζι και πλακούντας όντινον ουδέποτε εγεύσαστε. Ονείσαστε άρτους ή καδε προσχάριν, τον προσφυλώνει προσχάριν της ίσης. Είδος, ισίτε ομού. Χαίρετε και καλώς ήλθετε εις το μείζον πολιτήριον εδαφίου. Ευόδη, αρώματα, εκπορή και κρίδι.
Αλλά πόλεμος απαξιεί τα εμπορεύματα εκδοχής υπόρη. Νίνη καπνιστή πίεση σύρνη.
The Emporion operated on a foundation of credit and loans. Overseas commerce was handled by 2 types of tradespeople. Emporoi transported cargo in borrowed ships, while naukleroi were ship owners who moved goods on their own vessels. Elsewhere in the Emporion were bankers and accountants who arranged loans and kept track of incoming and outgoing ships. Emporoi and naukleroi financed their maritime voyages with these loans, which often had a high interest rate due to the dangers of sea travel. Emporoi used the loans to pay for both the cargo and the right to a ship, while naukleroi only had to pay for their crew. Loans and interest were repaid upon a ship's return to port. However, in the event of a catastrophe such as a shipwreck, the merchant and ship owner were released from their obligations, and the losses were transferred to the lender.
Ένα βολόν, τίσιμη, 4 γε.
Συγγνώσω 2. Κομπρίτη πόλη. Κόπτετε λάρικα όλοι στε.
You've returned. I hope you enjoyed your stroll through the port. Piraeus was important to Athens' commercial interests, but it eventually came into its own as a vibrant and bustling port. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If you say so, let us see what you've learned, wanderer. First, a simple question. Which Athenian politician originally encouraged the development of Piraeus' natural harbors?
Ένα βολόν, τίσιμη, 4 γε.
Correct. Themistocles saw Piraeus' potential as a port and encouraged its development. On to the next question. What did the Sitophilakes supervise? Yes, Sitophilakes had the extremely important responsibility of handling all matters related to grain commerce. Only one question left. What was the name of the slave who took advantage of Piraeus' opportunities to earn themselves citizenship? Correct. Passion managed to earn a fortune and achieve citizenship thanks to both his bank and a successful shield business. Your knowledge of Piraeus is impressive. Well done, Wanderer. As you wish. Thank you for visiting.
Έχουμε Κίνους εκφών που διαλυστά έχουμε ναι και εκβιζαν